Has anyone here, let me see a show of hands, ever struggled with perfectionism? Self-sabotage? All or nothing thinking? Catastrophizing, meaning you blow things way out of proportion? What about personalization? So when something does go wrong, you're like, that was me, that was my fault. Me too. But these are just some examples of what we call cognitive distortions, right? Distorted ways of thinking. Most of the time, when we engage in these types of thinking, it's not based on logic or fact, it's based on emotion. When emotion takes over and is in that driver's seat, logic is like, peace out, bye, I'm going offline. Emotion is such a strong driver for our decisions, for how we think. And so we're going to talk about some concepts today as to why we engage in these types of thinking and why we continue to engage in them regardless of how much we learn about them. We can label them, we know when they're happening, but why can't I stop doing it? All right, so when we learn about people's backgrounds, interests, and perspectives, we begin to understand who they are. And when we are reminded of our own backgrounds, perspectives, and interests, we are reminded of who we are. This workshop is all about navigating the landscape of your identity. Or in other words, basically learning about why and how the past is so important to the understanding of who you are today and who you want to be in the future. Now, we can't talk about identity without talking about the battle between nature versus nurture. I'm going to do some Psych 101 real quick. Just bear with me. The battle between nature versus nurture refers to whether it is more genetic or more environmental that shape who we are as people today, right? Nature refers to the genetical, biological factors, the genes you were born with, the traits you inherited, the literal chemical makeup of your brain. Whereas nurture refers to those environmental factors, how you were raised, what was the surrounding culture that became your norm. Those things have such an impact on who we are today. Now, I want you to think about your own fitness journey, right? Some people in this room are just naturally more athletic, right? Meaning you don't walk in a straight line and trip over your own 2 feet, because sometimes I do that. Some can put on more muscle a lot easier than others who have to try extra hard. And think about like nurture part, right? Some of you may have grown up in a household where fitness was a thing. Moving your bodies was a priority, whereas some are like, what was that? Even with the foods and the things that you eat, right? Was mom always on a diet? My mom was, so that became my norm. Did our household talk about nutritious foods versus non-nutritious foods? Was just snacks in the house all the time? Was fruit even a thing, right? These things impact who you are today, regardless of how much knowledge and how much wisdom and age you've had over the years. And so nature can provide a foundation for our potential, but it's ultimately the environmental factors and lifestyle choices that play a more significant role in shaping who you are today. Now, we can't also talk about identity without talking about both personal and social identities. Personal identity refers to how we see ourselves in the context of other people, right? How we differentiate ourselves from other people. This could take into account the career choice that you made, your hobbies, your interests, whereas social identity focuses on the similarities we have with other people. This could be your race, your religion, your sexual orientation, being part of a community like PCC. This is all a part of our social identity. And so while social identity has a big impact, it's ultimately the balance between the two. We have our own personal identities that we may like to keep hidden a little bit, while some we're really proud of. Any big sports fans out here? Some of you guys who have very strong sports social identities, right, were inducted into that specific social identity because of maybe family history. Maybe it's just a team that your family has followed for so many years. So I guess it makes sense that this team is my team. Some people base that on their geographic location of where they were born or where they're currently living. We love having specific social identities because it provides us with a sense of belonging with other people. So why is this important to know? Because then when we learn about these different things about ourselves, who we are in context of other people, our personal identities, our social identities, our likes, our dislikes, we develop and create self-awareness. which is the ability to recognize and understand your own thoughts, emotions, feelings, and behaviors, and then you're able to consider how these things align with your most authentic self. Self-awareness is the most important factor in one's own personal development, interpersonal relationships, and overall well-being. Now, let me ask you this. Can you go through life without ever having and practicing self-awareness? Yes, majority of people do. It's easy to go through life without ever having self-awareness. But let me tell you why you don't want to be one of those people and why you actually want to have self-awareness. Number one, personal growth. Self-awareness allows you to identify and understand your strengths and areas of growth. And then if you do that, then you can recognize those areas of growth. And then setting goals becomes so much more effective and actually following through on them, which then allows you to make more informed decisions that are aligned with the choices that you make every single day. An example of this could be someone with high self-awareness or just self-awareness in general. The bar's pretty low here, right? We talk about how a lot of people, majority of people, don't have self-awareness. So even just having a sprinkle of it, we will take. So someone with self-awareness is someone who can invest in their personal growth, maybe in one aspect, health and fitness, right? So people who are like, let me go invest in a coach because I've been trying to do this on my own for so long and I just can't seem to hit my goals. So let me outsource. That's personal growth, self-awareness. Number two is emotional intelligence. Self-awareness allows you to be more aware of your emotions and triggers and how they influence your thoughts and behaviors. So think of it this way. So has anyone been so freaking stressed that pantry with that bag of Oreos is just looking extra sexy? So someone with self-awareness is able to stop for a second and say, I can pinpoint that whenever I'm stressed, when I'm feeling emotional, when I'm feeling frustrated at work, or I'm feeling pressured, that bag of Oreos is just so dang sexy, right? But you can stop yourself. You can be like, well, that might be immediate gratification because I know when I eat one piece of Oreo, it's going to turn into a whole sleeve. It's going to turn into 2 sleeves, and then I'm going to be even more stressed. So self-awareness allows us to just take a step back and say, okay, maybe not a full sleeve, but give me a handful of those sexy Oreos. And number 3, communication. Self-awareness helps you communicate more effectively because then you can understand your own unique communication styles, right? Anyone here prefer to send a text versus having a one-on-one conversation? Or maybe even sending that text and then you throw your phone because you don't want to look at their response. So you have very unique communication styles. And when you have self-awareness, you can understand what works for you and what doesn't, and then maybe work towards something that is a little bit more realistic for everyone and more on par with your personal goals. You can also set better boundaries. People pleasers, a lot of people pleasers out here. So setting boundaries is really, really tough. Right? And self-awareness, when we can communicate better, we can set those boundaries, advocate for ourselves, and then we actually don't have to feel guilty. If I'm a people pleaser, I just don't want to offend anyone. I want to make sure they're good, but then I'm going to sacrifice myself. Someone with self-awareness doesn't do that. They can set these boundaries. Number 4 is stress management. Self-awareness allows you to become more in tune with your mental and emotional state, because then you understand what your triggers are, so things that set you off, and then you start to begin to understand which coping mechanisms, healthy coping mechanisms, work for you in very specific situations. So back to being stressed at work. So again, how many times am I going to say sexy bag of Oreos today? But when you're stressed at work, right? If you understand that, then maybe the next time you ask your partner, can you just not? Or can we just have the smaller one? We don't need the family value pack for a family of 2, right? So self-awareness just allows you to, once again, take a couple steps forward and look out for future Michaela, future Grace, future Azalea. So number 5, resiliency and adaptability. Self-awareness helps build resiliency in the face of adversity. It strengthens your ability to bounce back from setbacks, learn from mistakes, and continue to grow, right? I'm gonna ask one more question. Do we have perfectionists here in the room? A lot of perfectionists, right? We can't make mistakes, even though, yeah, other people can, and I really love that for you, and I appreciate that, but not me. I can't make mistakes. I need to be perfect. So self-awareness allows us to be like, get yourself together. You can make a mistake. It's okay. It also strengthens our ability to shift perspectives and to keep an open mind, which then allows us to be open to change and feedback. So think about an example with a coach, for example, who calls you out, maybe doesn't call you out, calls you out in a very compassionate way and says, hey, Angelique, I noticed that you tend to get bored with your workouts really quickly. Someone with self-awareness is going to be able to take that feedback and say, well, I guess that's what my coach is for, right? I'll take the feedback. Someone with no self-awareness is going to be like, screw you, I'm out, ghost their coach or find a new coach. And that happens a lot of times. People will jump from coach to coach until they hear what they want to hear. And 6, relationships. And when I talk about relationships, I don't mean just romantic relationships. Think about your friends, your coworkers, your family, people in your social circle. Self-awareness allows you to develop and maintain those healthy relationships because it provides you with the ability to understand, once again, your own needs, your own boundaries, own communication styles, even your fighting styles. And yes, we have very specific fighting styles, right? So even when thinking about someone you have conflict with, some people are going to be like, I need 5 minutes, leave me the heck alone. I need to think, and then we can talk. While other people are like, we're having this conversation right now. Sit down, we'll figure it out. And 7, decision-making. Self-awareness facilitates more informed and aligned decision-making. For example, every single choice that you make every single day. So it allows you to make choices that resonate with your most authentic self. Does anyone here know, on average, how many decisions a person makes each day? We make, on average, 35,000 decisions per day. Think about this. When your alarm goes off in the morning, am I going to press snooze or do I keep sleeping? Do I have to get up? Oh my gosh, my dog needs to go to the bathroom. Do I let him out first or can I go first? Do I need to put the coffee pot on, but my kid is yelling at me over here? Constant decisions every single day. So someone who has self-awareness is able to make majority of these decisions that are based with their authentic self, right? Or even someone who says, I don't know, I made 1,000 decisions that did not align with my most authentic self. They're not going to throw away the other 34,000. They're going to say, all right, that's 1,000. I got 34,000 more, right? See how that difference in perspective just makes a whole lot of difference. And last, but certainly not least, is authenticity. Self-awareness allows you to become your most authentic and true self, which then helps you develop a sense of integrity within yourself. You build trust in personal and professional relationships. And more importantly, you build that trust with the relationship you have with yourself. And so all in all, self-awareness is a foundational aspect of personal and interpersonal development. It forms the basis for continuous improvement, emotional intelligence, and building those meaningful connections with others, and again, most especially with ourselves. Unlocking more self-awareness, as you guys probably saw from that activity, also means unlocking not so great things. A lot of times, unlocking those parts we prefer to keep hidden is really not a good look. This is why a lot of people don't practice self-awareness, because it's so much easier to just keep those parts hidden. Let's shove it under a rug and never look at it again, because that's easier. Psychologist Tasha Eurich did a study back in 2014 where she concluded that 95% of people think that they are self-aware, when in actuality, only 10 to 15% actually are. Crazy, but maybe not so crazy, because I've been talking about how majority of people don't have self-awareness. But why do we think this is, right? One reason, like I said, is because self-awareness is not pretty. It doesn't always look or feel good. In fact, it feels really icky more often than not. But it's truly when you bring those icky parts to the surface, sit with them and work through them and continue digging deeper and deeper is when you can unlock more self-awareness. Think of it this way. How can you work on something that you don't even know is a problem, right? Ignorance is bliss. Absolutely. So with increased self-awareness, you can overcome the many barriers for improved overall well-being. Now that we know why self-awareness is so important, I'm going to talk real quickly about the self-concept theory, which was developed by psychologist Carl Rogers. He talks about how the self-concept theory encompasses three main things: our self-image, how we see ourselves; self-esteem, how much value we place on ourselves; and our ideal self, our best self, the best version that we want to get to. And according to Rogers, we as humans want to feel, experience, and behave in ways that are consistent with our self-image and that are like what we want to be like, our ideal self. And so the closer our self-image and our ideal self are to each other, then the more consistent we become, and then the higher our sense of self-worth can be. All right, so what do we do when we're faced with one of the biggest barriers of self-awareness? When your mind says one thing, but your body says another, right? Mentally, you want to do the thing. You want to level up. You want to get to your best self. You want to do the work, but your actions and your behaviors just won't get with the freaking program. I want you to remember that this isn't because you lack willpower. You don't need more discipline. You don't just need to do better or to suck it up, have someone scream in your face to just do it. You don't need that. I want you to go back, first and foremost, to the things outside of your control, the concepts we talked about today, right? The nature versus nurture, the things that were outside of your control, your personal identities and social identities that you formed for yourself or were formed for you without you even signing up for it. And I want you to acknowledge and lessen the blame, the guilt, and the shame away from yourself 100% entirely. It's not all on you. And 3, feel empowered to focus on the things within your control because, that's the only thing you can control. So it just makes sense, right? And I say this not to say that we should just point fingers at every little thing and every other person that is a reason as to why we're unhappy or we're not where our ideal self is just yet. There is a level of accountability. I want you to ask your question, what are the things within my control that I can change? Remember that everything is about balance. So focus on the things outside of your control, acknowledge them, sit with it, but then also remember that you do have some skin in the game. It's your life. You get to make some choices. 35,000 decisions a day that you can change and be a little bit more intentional with. All right, so here are my 5 main takeaways that I want you guys to walk out of here with today. 1 is that self-concept is made up of those 3 things: how you see yourself, your self-image, your ideal self, your best self, and how confident you are in becoming that person. 2, those ideas and qualities that make up your self-concept are multidimensional. There are so many different things that make up who you are, from your literal genes and chemical makeup of your brain to your likes, your dislikes, your personal identities, your social identities. You are such a complex human being, so you can't just be like, just love yourself, just do it. Nah, we're a little bit more complex than that. 3, going off that point, your thoughts do not always align with the reality. Newsflash. Just because you feel something does not mean it's true, right? And like I said at the beginning, when emotion takes over the driver's seat, logic goes away. So we need to be able to audit our thoughts, fact check them, figure out where did that thought come from, where did that belief come from, and then make a decision if that's something you're going to want to continue believing or not. 4, self-awareness is an ongoing development. We never stop learning about ourselves and other people. And I don't say that to be like really depressing, that it's like, oh my gosh, this doesn't end. It doesn't end in a more positive way, right? Because think about that. Yeah, you are not the same person that you were a year ago, 2 years ago. We don't want to be those people, right? We embrace those versions, but we keep leveling up. And again, back to Marissa's point at the beginning, it's not about the destination. It's about that journey. And 5, identity can be changed. You do not have to be the person that you were a year ago, 5 years ago, even last month, if you don't want to be. Identity is the one thing within your control that you get to decide. Even when you walk out the store today, I'm going to change that part of me and I'm going to own it. And I actually get to do that. When we put those mental reps in and day out, leaning on the self-compassion when we need it, which for a lot of us, we just agreed was a foreign thing, then we can unlock the next level of ourselves, right? And like I said, it's not going to be pretty. It's not a walk in the park, but the other side really does bring a whole nother level of clarity. So when we constantly pursue progress over perfection, then we become more successful in achieving that best self. Now, do you guys see what we talked about at the beginning with the all or nothing thinking, the self-sabotage, the catastrophization, how self-awareness actually allows us to bring those up to the surface so we can learn, oh, those are the things I need to work on. Self-awareness is all about meeting yourself where you're at right now, not where you want to be, not where you were before, right here and right now.